It's kind of scary when you say that. Okay, so hi everyone. As promised, I have Cassandra here today to talk about astrology, and I'm super excited because she's so knowledgeable. Um, and I know a lot of people, a lot of my followers are fairly new to all of this. So Cassandra's just going to talk a little bit about each of the signs, um, and just tell us a little bit about maybe some of the struggles that may come up. Because I think for me, the more I learn about astrology, the more comforting it is when I'm keep banging my head against the wall and keep like, why does this keep happening? Or, that kind of thing. But the more you understand about your personal astrology, the more you can go, okay, that's why, this is my challenge, or this is kind of the shadow side of my sign. So you can learn to work with it a little bit better. And it brings that, it feels less anxious, less judgy on yourself when you understand it. So Cassandra's going to come share her wisdom with us today. If you are here, please feel free to ask questions. And if you're catching the replay, definitely you can ask questions as well. And so, Cassandra, thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
Me too. So, tell me about the signs.
Okay, so we're going to go through the shadow side of each sign, and it's important to know this because I think that, a lot of people when they're just getting into astrology, they're going to hear the typical stereotypes of all the signs. And,
Right.
some of those are true to an extent. And some of them are just a little exaggerated because it's fun to make fun of your friends' signs and everything,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's fun when it's someone else. So we're going to talk a little more seriously about, I'm going to introduce kind of what the signs are and then what shadow you might experience if you have that sign. And so if you're brand new to astrology and you only know your sun sign, you can listen to that one. And if you know a little bit more of your astrology, you can listen to your sun, moon, and rising, because we tend to oftentimes will exhibit the traits of all three of those in their own unique way, however they combine in our chart. And so do you want me to start going into them now?
For sure. That sounds good. Yeah. Maybe just before you do, talk a little bit about what shadow means, like when you're
Okay.
talking about astrology, because, yeah.
Yes. Okay. And so this is actually one of the reasons people don't always relate to their astrology, because every sign has a certain archetype, and that
Hmm.
archetype can be expressed in a positive or negative way. It can be
Right.
expressed in a way that is seen as like helpful and constructive and useful, and a way that is more destructive. So every sign has that, where too much, even like if you think of like sunshine is good and we need it, but too much of anything can turn into poison, right? Everything can be medicine or poison depending on how much of that energy we experience.
Right.
And so sometimes we live out the more shadow side of a sign, and we exhibit the more negative qualities until we grow and learn and have to see that thing and desire to change it. Other times, we might relate more to some of the more positive sides.
Hmm.
And so I think the shadow comes in to really help us understand and see the parts of us that maybe people don't accept, maybe that we have repressed, because oftentimes, we like, if we need to be hardworking, we're going to kill the part of ourselves that is lazy, because we can't have that part of ourselves be active. And so we do this to survive at a young age based on social conditioning and all kinds of different influences that we have. And so this is why astrology gets really more complex. It's more than just simply, I'm a Leo, therefore I like attention, right? Because a
Right.
Leo who is, taught at a young age they should be an actor, or who have parents who are actors or something like that, they're going to not have necessarily some of the baggage that a Leo who is born into a family of coal miners would have, for example. I know that's really extreme, but
I think that's a really good point because, yeah, because I think, I mean, just what came up for me is that belief systems too, right? So if you are say a Leo, like, and I don't know the signs very well like you do, but if that's someone who's supposed to be like outspoken and outgoing and stuff like that, but they're all always taught as a child, you know, children should be
Mm-hmm.
seen, not heard, or that kind of thing, then it almost suppresses that, which would bring up like a whole bunch of negative kind of behaviors in another way because they're suppressing who they naturally are. So I think that's a great point.
Yes, absolutely. And so there's so much to really unpack just one person's astrology that goes beyond just simply, oh, I have my sun in this sign, therefore I am this way. Because
Yeah,
what many people who are just learning astrology don't know is that an astrologer, a good astrologer, will not state something as a fact unless they see it 3 times in a chart. So if I see one placement that says you're outgoing and 2 placements that say you're shy, and I only look at that outgoing placement and I'm just looking at that with blinders on, well, that's not really going to feel true to you.
right.
Um, so yeah, did that cover what shadow is, do you
Yeah,
think?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think that was a good explanation. And I think just a really good thought provoking too, because I think lots of people, maybe see the memes or, read that, okay, like I know for me, Aries is very strong headed and things like that. And so understanding that that's a part of who I am, but there's other aspects of it. And part of me needed to grow into that too. So,
Totally. And just to kind of add on that, what makes this more personal is like one person with the sun in Aries, and they have, let's say they have 5 planets in Libra, which is kind of the opposite energy. They're going to express very, very differently than someone else with the sun in Aries, and they have 5 other planets in Aries. So
right.
it's like each planet is going to express through that sign, and they're like several different placements in the chart. So it's like we each have parts of ourselves. I like seeing the planets as parts of ourselves because I mean, it just makes so much sense when it comes to, okay, this part of you wants to take the lead and be like an Aries, and this part of you wants to let other people go first and be like a Libra. And,
Yeah.
when we see it in this light, I've had so many clients who, had readings or learned about their astrology in the past, and they were told these really direct, kind of basic, simple explanations, and it wasn't accurate. And they had to we straightened them out. That's how they felt afterwards. Like, oh, now I understand that thing that person told me just wasn't accurate. And I see this a lot with people, but it's really, astrology is just this tool to help us self-understand, and that gets back into the shadow of like
Mm,
how we can only see so much of who we are based on where we're at. And then, as we grow and peel the layers of the onion, mature, age, whatever we do to grow, it's like sometimes we can't see those things about ourselves until we've reached a certain level. Usually, I always think it's like until we're at the level where we can handle that information. And so, um, that's why the shadow stuff is so important, because you may have heard it 3 years ago and it didn't land for you, but
yeah.
now that you've done a bunch of work on yourself, oh, now it makes sense.
I love that because that's so true. Sometimes we can get information and it's just, you just you don't get it because you're just not there yet. So I think that's perfect. Um, awesome. So let's dive in then. Let's hear about the signs.
Okay, so we're going to start with Aries. And so Aries is cardinal fire. It's the first sign of the zodiac. And so fire signs are going to be more active and engaged naturally. They're going to have more energy. They're going to feel more stifled if they're getting stuck or if they can't move forward. The strengths of Aries are sort of a courage, a daringness, this kind of desire to just kind of push things through. But the shadow side of Aries can be overstepping people's boundaries, because Aries is like a warrior on a battlefield that will just kind of go first and like want to initiate and want to just take charge and um, care about like pushing forward. This doesn't mean every Aries like has to have their own business, but they tend to do well in things where they are self-start, because they're self-starters,
Mm,
and they can really shine when they're leading people. And Aries, when it's shining, is like just being so pioneering and on such a leading edge and just going first to the point where people just naturally want to follow them. They're like paving the trail for other people. And so the challenge here is that sort of ability to push through and zero in on and focus in on and go forward sometimes can translate into challenges with other people where
Mm.
the Aries person, whether it's sun, moon, or rising, can have challenges where they're just going first, trying to go out there and do what they want to do and make things happen, and then turns out it hurt someone's feelings, or someone felt like they overstepped in some way. And so that's really the biggest challenge for Aries, is to have to really learn when to hang back, because it's
Mm.
not a natural trait for Aries.
And I can totally relate to that, because I think I have Aries 4 times in my chart or something. But yeah, and that's exactly how I feel. And there was so much shame in that for me until I understood that, like, but that's who I am, and I'm passionate, and I'm, yeah, everything you said. And so there was almost this shame about like hurting people or around, because I just get so passionate about things. And then it's yeah. So I don't know if that made sense very well, but when you were saying it, I'm like, yeah, I totally get that. So, and so I think that's part of the shadow side too, is that there comes shame and guilt with it when we recognize that we're doing it. And so understanding that that's ways to navigate that, I would think would be, yeah.
Yes, and I feel like with all signs and all of the shadows, I mean, whether it's a shadow or not really kind of depends, I think, on whether the person can see it and is aware of it, right? Because once we see
Mm,
it, it's not a shadow anymore. But I also feel like part of the shadow work that I help people with is not just like, okay, I accept this, but like, let's use that quality for good.
yeah,
Like if it's causing destruction, if it's bringing challenges, then let's just take that innate ability and see how we can funnel that into something that's going to help you in your life instead of cause problems.
absolutely. Excellent. Well, thank you for that.
So
Again,
we
sums up me. Yeah, for sure. Let's move on.
Okay, so moving on to Taurus. Taurus is the second sign of the zodiac. They are fixed earth. So earth signs tend to move a lot slower. Fixed signs tend to be more consistent, not as flexible. Taurus is all about enjoying the senses, and people with Taurus placements will work for things. They will work to have the things they want, but it's really about enjoying the thing at the end of the day. So if they're going to work hard, they're going to have a nice house. If they're going to, go to the office, they're going to want the nicest office chair. I mean, some of it is having nicer things. For other Taurus placements, they're going to be more connected to nature and enjoying the senses in that way. But
Mm,
Taurus really wants to like enjoy life. So this can show up as being artistic or enjoying art, beauty, being in the beauty industry, or it can be totally different and show up as like really having a love of food, anything that has to do with our own physical bodies and enjoying our time here on earth. All the earth signs are going to be really grounded. They're going to move at a slower, more deliberate pace, and that they can like slowly build success usually if they want to, if they're applying their energy in that way. And so the challenge for Taurus more than any other sign is getting stuck in a rut, because they have so much desire to be comfortable. They always get made fun of on memes for eating burritos because Taurus just loves to enjoy things, right? They want to, after
mm.
work, they want to kick back, watch TV, eat a burrito, get in their sweats or whatever. Like they just want to feel good. And whether a Taurus is going to be hardworking or not, that depends on other things in the chart. So it's not like all Tauruses just watch TV all day or all Tauruses work hard to have things. It's a little more nuanced, but they will get stuck with blinders on. They will have a harder time leaving their comfort zone and
Mm,
taking risks, because that's like the opposite of their energy. Their energy is all about being safe, having their security, and making sure everything's secure financially, emotionally. Self-esteem is important to Taurus. Having the clothes they want, stuff like that is really important. But sometimes switching into the energy of like taking risks, taking chances, doing things that they perceive to be risky is it doesn't mean Taurus has to go jump out of their comfort zone, but the shadow is when they're avoiding risks at all costs because it feels more safe to be where they are.
Mm-hmm. I think because I mean I have a lot of clients that I've worked with that, and I mean safety is a base chakra kind of thing and something we all want. So I can see how that would be almost like an extra pull for a Taurus, maybe. And yeah, and so just interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you want to move on to Gemini now?
Sure.
Okay, so Geminis are third sign of the zodiac. They're air signs, they're mutable, and so that means mutable signs are really flexible and adaptable. Air signs are usually interested in the mind, matters of the mind. So, like conversations, they might have a way with words, they might be more talkative, they have a higher need for communication. So, Geminis are the most flexible air sign, and so how that gets translated is they will have a very heightened need for communication, but it's not usually like deep, esoteric, like meaning of life type stuff. A Gemini can do really well with like small talk. They can do really well with connecting with different people from different walks of life. They tend to like being busy because they're a sign of the twins, so they multitask really, really well, and definitely are known for their communication. And this challenge with Gemini, one of the shadows they have is actually finishing things. And this is true for all mutable signs where it is hard for them to stick with something because they're so flexible, they're so adaptable that staying when something gets uncomfortable, a Gemini is not known for that. And so um, this can be the shadow when, like, when a Gemini is trying to build relationships, you could see them possibly, like a Gemini at a party will just, I can almost see them like going to talk to like 20 different people. And the second the conversation gets a little, not easy, light, and chatty, they're just going to move on to the next. And so that can be a skill in like, especially in work, where Geminis they can talk, they can sell, they can talk a dog off a meat wagon. They're very persuasive. And then their challenge is to be able to know what to commit to in their life and know how to really focus their energy into like a specific thing and stay with it. It's like through the challenges.
I could see with that one, just that wanting to fix, because I know that that's a lot of things people come up at and they're really frustrated with themselves. So I would think as a Gemini, that would be heightened, that, why can't I finish anything? I start all these things and I can't finish things. And so again, that, like we talked about, learning to work with it rather than beating yourself up and like, I suck because I never finish anything, and understanding that that's kind of a part of your sign. And like you said, working with it rather than it causing so much issue for you and judgment,
Right.
I would think.
Totally.
Nice.
All right, should we?
Next.
Okay, Cancer is next. So Cancer is the fourth sign. It is cardinal water. So Cancers are the crab, and so they are known for having a tough outer shell and a very gushy inner middle center. So it's like they care about people, and they also can be very protective of the people they love. They're very much concerned, focused on family or family-like units of people. So their friend group, sometimes they can be the glue that hold people together. They can also be very nurturing. So a Cancer can nurture each individual thing. So if they have a nursery, if they have a daycare business, if they have kids, if they have friends in their life, they're going to take the time to really make sure each one person or each one plant is going to get the care that they need. And sometimes Cancers don't always appreciate how much people need them. Cancers don't always want to be the ones everyone comes to, but they tend to be because they just have a way of sort of making people feel okay. And it doesn't have to be like as a mother, even though Cancer is the sign of the mother, men can be cancers and people who aren't mothers can still have Cancer energy. So that can show up in, for some cancers who don't feel like they relate to that family unit side, they can actually nurture like a business in the same way. But if they do, it's like their baby. And so the shadow side of Cancer is they burn out. So cancers, you'll
Mm.
find them as nurses, you'll find them as social workers, you'll find them working in jobs where they are caring for other people, and they are not, it's not always easy for them to see what their own needs are, to set boundaries on their time, and they'll just get burnt out from helping everyone and not really know how to handle that. So that's the shadow side for Cancer.
I could see that as almost that people pleaser kind of energy, which I could see, yeah, that would be the shadow. And that would be something that you definitely need to work on, because not taking care of yourself and filling your cup first can be detrimental. And that's why I think you see that, like you said, with nurses and social workers and things like that, that burnout. And so understanding that and making that a conscious effort and removing all the barriers to that. So if it is like people pleasing and things like that, because again, you have that undercurrent of you're going to be pulled to care for others. But if you have on top of that belief systems around that, then I could see that that would be really difficult.
That makes total sense. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people struggle with self-care, but I could just see when you were telling me about that one specifically, a lot of it's tied to beliefs and stuff. But if you have that, like I said, undercurrent, that's kind of, it makes it that much stronger that it would be hard for you to take that self-care.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
nice. Okay. I'm loving
Okay.
this, by the way.
All right, next we have Leo. Leo is a fixed fire sign. They are, so fixed is again consistent, and fire is passion. So with Leo, we see the energy of self-expression. You know, Leo's the lion. Leos, we know, like to be the center of attention, and they kind of tend to just garner attention. People who have strong Leo energy will just be the person when they walk into the room, everyone looks at them. And it's not always about physical beauty necessarily. Sometimes it can be, but it's really, they just have this way of sort of attracting attention. And um, they also are about self-expression. So you can see people with Leo energy as like, you know, sometimes they'll be actors, sometimes they'll be amazing writers, sometimes they will own businesses, sometimes they will own nightclubs, or they'll be interested in the entertainment industry. And the overall energy though is of shining like who you truly are. So it's not just getting attention as much as it is being seen for who you are and being able to express yourself as who you are. And there's a way that for Leos, they kind of just can light people up just by sort of being themselves, if that makes sense.
Mm,
And so the challenge
beautiful.
for Leos, the shadow side of Leo is starting drama, because they have this natural dramatic flair, and they just, you know, they can do really well with like being in the limelight, or even like the Leos I've known, when they're talking about a conversation, they will act out the different people, what they say. You know, they're just kind of naturally good at sort of making things a bigger deal than they are, in a fun way. But when that energy isn't balanced, it's you know, it's like a need for that drama gets expressed in that negative way of starting it and getting attention that way, if that makes sense.
And I could see that again. And I mean, when we originally talked about doing this live, we were talking about using the flower essences. And as you're saying some of these, I can see how with beliefs and patterns and everything else, how that can become, like I said, a part of self-judgment and a part of you almost take it to the extreme and then causes issues. So nice. Okay.
All right, so next we have Virgo. Virgo is a mutable earth sign, so it's flexible, but it's also grounded. Virgos are can be very organized. They really need to be in control in a certain way. So they can like outline the next steps to get to a goal. A Virgo is not necessarily the most spontaneous sign. They're going to want to really organize themselves. And so that does not mean if you are a Virgo, everything you do is organized, just that like a part of you wants to be. So Virgos will either like outline the next steps to their goal and have like a spreadsheet for it, or they will be cleaning all the time. That's another like stereotype of Virgo. Or they'll really want to be of service and help people. And sometimes Virgos are drawn into industries like natural healing. Virgos oftentimes will, not always, but they'll want to have a more natural look. Even if they do like wear makeup and stuff, they'll want it to look more natural. They can really appreciate like the earth and nature and beauty and the beauty of things that are unadulterated and like in their pure form. And they really care about getting better. And the shadow side of Virgo is perfectionism. And so
Mm.
there's a way that perfectionism can be expressed where it becomes like purification. And it's like, I want to keep being better at my craft until I'm really, really good. But the problem for Virgos is when it becomes, I can't do anything because I've outlined all these steps and I'm not perfect enough to even start. And, you know, they can't, sometimes their shadow shows up when they will have a hard time getting on the path because it's like they can see they're not ready, or they will really want to be the best, or they can be doing it, you know, be in action and struggle with spending too long on something because they want to make it perfect. And for Virgos, it's important to be able to kind of take a step back and focus their energy so they don't fall into that perfectionism too bad.
Interesting. The flower essences are just popping in my head now, just so you know, because that's exactly what crab apple's for. Um,
Okay.
and that's a purification one too. And it's anyway, yeah, it's just interesting how. So now I'm thinking maybe we should do another one after we've done this kind of summary and do what we originally talked about. But anyway.
All right, shall we go on to Libra?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so Libras are a cardinal air sign, and they are the scales. And so Libra is all about balance, and it can show up usually as an emphasis on relationships or an emphasis on justice, or sometimes it's like art and beauty. Libras are really, it's like harmony. So that's the different ways harmony can show up, right? It can show up as like harmonizing in a social way where they're really good at connecting with people, making people feel good, lifting people up, climbing up the ladder of success, building relationships. And then it can be harmonizing in the sense of like making things right that were wrong. And that can show up in
Mhm.
a bunch of different ways, but like the law or social justice, social work, advocating for people's rights. And then the last way is like harmonizing through creating beauty, creating harmony, whether it's makeup artists or feng shui or any other way that someone would bring beauty to the world. And so because they have such a focus on the other, that is Libra's gift and their detriment, right? Is that they are so, a Libra will actually ask someone how they feel about something before stating their opinion because they don't want to rock the boat. And so because of this, they can be very diplomatic, but the challenge here becomes that they lose their balance in relationships. And it can be
Mm.
very hard for a Libra to know when to set boundaries, or to, it can go either way where they can be the one who's like giving too much and they're just not happy and they don't know how to bring that balance back, or putting relationships above everything else and then kind of losing their sense of self a little bit, or it can go the totally opposite way with Libras where they'll be the ones who are, because they have that gift of climbing the ladder of success and really like like capitalizing on their relationships and networking, that can also be taken a little too far where it just becomes like stepping on people to success. And so Libras have to watch that their relationships are balanced, because that imbalance is their biggest shadow.
Okay. Nice. I'm sorry. I'm just loving this. I'm hoping that, I mean, I don't think we have anybody on live right now, but I'm hoping on the replay that, because I'm seeing, even when I think of people I know in my life, I'm like, things that maybe frustrate me is some of those shadow things. And so understanding for me even, and going, okay, I need to be a little bit more patient with that, knowing that that's part of the shadow of who their sign is and everything. So I just think this is so informative and so wonderful. I could listen to you all day.
That's awesome. Well, and I love you that you said that, because astrology can help with that. It can help kind of understand other people's imbalances in a way that is just like, oh, they're just being a Libra, or they're just being a whatever sign, not to pick on Libras, but
Yeah,
really it totally, I don't know, it's helped me a lot with that.
absolutely. Well, I mean, and I can even think of some of my clients and some of their struggles. And I mean, I know I don't know their signs, but it's like, I wonder if I wonder if that's their sign, because knowing that would be so huge. And again, that's why I just go, like, astrology is so beautiful. It just helps us understand ourselves so much better. Um, and like I kind of said at the beginning, you can kind of take that judgment away, or trying to make yourself something that you're not, and you're judging yourself on that, to understand that that's an undercurrent. And again, that doesn't mean that you have to be that way, or that you can, like you said, funnel it into that energy into a helpful way. But just to even, because I think before you can take that step, having that understanding that that's where that energy is coming from, rather than what's wrong with me kind of thing. Because when you're in judgment, you can't really, there's almost like a victimhood behind it, and so you can't make movement forward. But to understand that and go, okay, now how can I use that to, like you said, in a positive way? Or how can I be more aware of that so that I am taking care of myself, or like that kind of thing. So I can't speak enough about how I feel like it's a blueprint. And I just, so okay, on to the next before I get lost in my own little my passion there, the Aries passion.
Okay, next is Scorpio. So Scorpios are fixed water. So they have very intense emotions. A Scorpio wants to dive deep into psychology. They want to get to the bottom of things. They naturally have this way of sort of um, getting other people to reveal things about themselves without revealing a single thing. They can be very secretive about themselves. There's a lot of power behind Scorpio, which is why it gets such a bad rap. And I always tell Scorpios to use their power for good, because that is really the difference. Scorpio is a wide spectrum from the best and most highest healing to the worst and most darkest form of abuse. And this does not mean Scorpios are abusive. Oftentimes they have dealt with some kind of abuse or trauma. They tend to experience more of the dark side of life than the average person in some way, shape, or form. And that translates into they can oftentimes accept and understand the darkness in other people in ways that just nobody else can. And so the challenge for Scorpio, though, the shadow side of Scorpio is trust issues, because it's like they first of all, a Scorpio, if you lie to them, that's gonna like ping these trust issues they have, and is going to make them feel like everything is not trustworthy, like, because they can sense when something is off
Hmm.
probably more easily than many of the signs. Not that other people can't sense things, but Scorpio just have sort of like this innate ability to know when somebody is lying to them, or when what someone is saying does not match what the energy feels like. And so they will, depending on where they are in their own healing journey, so this can translate into just projecting that someone's lying about everything,
Hmm.
to just like not trusting someone when the Scorpio people need to learn that if someone doesn't want to tell you something, it doesn't mean anything about you. It just means
Mm,
they are not ready to tell you that. Or maybe maybe it's personal, maybe it's private.
nice. Again, you just have my head just going. I'm just like so thinking about it. So,
Should we
is
move
it?
on to, oh, sorry.
No, no, go ahead. Yeah, definitely move on.
Okay, so the next one is Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is mutable fire, so mutable, again, flexible passion. So Sagittarius want to expand and explore, so oftentimes their energy is expressed through being a traveler, wanting to adventure in some way, doing some kind of work that involves having new experiences, expanding their mind. And the other way this can be expressed is through expanding their mind through like philosophy or deep esoteric knowledge, spirituality, understanding the meaning of life. And sometimes it can show up as like the law or, you know, other like moral systems of understanding, like morality, you know, what is right and what is wrong, things like this. So for Sagittarius, though, they care so much about the truth. Like the truth is everything to a Sagittarius. And so the problem with that, the way the shadow comes up, is they will actually be too honest when it comes to just like putting their foot in their mouth. That's probably the thing Sagittarius do that's like just kind of gets them in trouble a lot because they'll just want to speak the truth. There are other signs like this too, but I think I see it as more challenging for Sagittarius because they don't always like they have to learn why not to do that before they'll
Mm,
understand. Like they'll have to learn through maybe being a little bit blunt in their early years and hurting people's feelings that not everyone sees things through a filter of like this is right and this is wrong. There are people who see things through a filter of like um maybe they're not ready to handle a truth at a certain point, you know, like
yeah.
maybe they care more about how they feel. And so that's the challenge for Sagittarius is to understand when and how to use the truth without kind of getting into like a preachy attitude about it. Like, this is my truth and you need to understand it, kind of a thing.
Fanatical, it feels like you go into that fanatical kind of, yeah,
And this one can
energy.
really show up in different ways, right? Like, one person could actually be a preacher, another person could just like share their opinions more than people want, you know, and then maybe even a more evolved Sagittarius would just have those opinions and not say them. And so it's working on the belief systems and really understanding that truth is relative and not everyone is exactly where you are mentally.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so next is Capricorn. Capricorn is a cardinal earth sign. Capricorns are known as the CEO of the zodiac. They oftentimes will have a natural ability to work hard. There's an energy of sacrifice in a positive way that's right for Capricorn. So Capricorn is represented by the sea goat, and the sea goat gets to the top of the mountain. So Capricorn is all about reaching new heights, accomplishing things, going places, whatever that means to that person. So this doesn't mean every Capricorn's a CEO. Some of them will just work hard on their home and make it the best home it can be. Others will just work hard and have a more serious demeanor, a more serious outlook on life because they're ruled by Saturn. But any Capricorn, they're going to be doing some kind of work. And it's probably going to be more on the physical side, whether it's building a business or whether it's like doing labor or whether it's, you know, just things that are hard. Capricorns work hard. And it's right for them to work hard. It's right for them to sacrifice some of their more like emotional um, needs
Mm-hmm.
to get the job done. And there's a real beauty in that. There's a real beauty for them and at the end of the day or end of the month or end of the year to say, I did all that because I worked hard. The challenge for Capricorns is being a workaholic and really not like kind of shutting out relationships or shutting out their own emotions to just get the job done. So they have to find the balance between how much of their sacrificing is actually supporting them versus how much of their need to make things hard is really just a knee-jerk reaction and not necessarily productive. It's almost like a Capricorn could make something harder than it has to be because they have such an innate need to do something hard to be able to say that they did it.
Could see that being a big stumbling block too.
And again, not every Capricorn's a CEO. You know, sometimes they're, you know, working, like they're more like regular everyday people. But I think the challenge is how they relate to work and sometimes how they relate to the world, and just thinking things always have to be done the hard way, or it's like virtue, you know, there's this like virtue of like, it has to be hard or it's not worth it.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
All right, so the next one is
Who's
Aquarius.
next?
Aquarius is a fixed air sign, so they are still going to be focused on air type things, which is like communicating and words and language and communicating ideas. But with Aquarius, this is going to be more about like making the world better. Aquarius really care about advancement, evolution in some way. So some of them are going to be like really into like science or technology. They'll be really super smart. They'll be really skilled at a certain technical or something that requires brain power, or they will be on the other side of Aquarius, which can be kind of different. So they might be outliers, they might be rebels in some way, they might want to go live on a commune, they might be really into permaculture, you know, things that are on the leading edge and that support the collective and are different and are not quite yet accepted by mainstream society. So Aquarius is usually one of those three things. And then the challenge for Aquarius is detaching from their emotions, because Aquarius really wants to like rise above in an intellectual way. Einstein had his Jupiter in Aquarius, and it really is about like wanting to see things from a higher perspective. But the problem is that when that gets too strong, it can become either like I see things as so high that I'm better than all of you other people who don't see it that way, or it can actually be just that sort of inability to connect emotionally. It doesn't mean all Aquariuses are not emotional or they don't care, but what happens with Aquarius sometimes is they are not always good at communicating in a warm and fuzzy way. And so sometimes they will come across as not caring, even though they care deeply about humanity. There's just this sort of detached intellectual side to them that, if they don't watch, can get a little too far and cause problems when it comes to the more touchy-feely aspects of life.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that being a challenge. And again, like I said, I can't say it enough. I think this is so beneficial to have even this understanding of the people that we care about and the people in our lives too. Like what a difference it would make in our relationships. So,
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so last but not least, we have Pisces, which is mutable water. This is the sign represented by the fish, and you know, mutable signs, they are the ones that are going to be more likely to be flexible. They can go with the flow. Pisces, because they're like flexible water, so it's like they really can sort of go with the flow. Pisces in a working environment can be very caring. They can be really easy to be around. And sometimes they even kind of disappear, in the sense that they'll just kind of be behind the scenes doing whatever they're doing, and no one will really notice unless they, you know, try to get that attention, which Pisces aren't as likely to want to do. They care, they're very compassionate, they can be very, very perceptive of other people's emotions, and they're really, really like, being around a Pisces is kind of like a breath of fresh air, because they're so like, they tend to have a calming influence on people and just be very chill. And the downside of Pisces even though they can get lost in like creative expression and artistry and even spiritual work, sometimes healing work, their challenge is getting distracted. So they're the most likely to get distracted. I mean, imagine trying to catch a fish. It just swims away from you. That's what it's like to try to catch a Pisces. They're just very like, they're just going to kind of want to wander. You know, they're not going to necessarily naturally have a structure or a plan or want to be confined. And if they reach conflict, a Pisces that hasn't done a lot of work on themselves is just going to avoid it completely. And so getting distracted slash avoidance
Mhm.
is a problem for Pisces. And so they have to really learn when to face things and when to, you know, let themselves just swim away from whatever is going on. So
Awesome. So thank you so much for that. Like I said, there's so much that came when you were talking about them because I had no idea about all the signs, and you're just so knowledgeable. Um, I think this is such a great for, like I said, anybody, and a lot of my followers are fairly new to stuff like this. And I think even like knowing a little bit about astrology, just thinking of some of my friends and some of my family, I'm like, okay, maybe I need to give them a little bit more of a break too. So just understanding that that is the energy that we have within us. And again, it doesn't define us, and we have choices within that. But just understanding that that's a part of who we are, I think is so valuable. Um, so is there anything that you kind of want to add before we kind of say sum up, or anything that you tell people how to get a hold of you? Because I hope that all these people who are hearing about their sign and going, yep, that's totally me, um, book a session with you, because I can personally attest to the fact that Cassandra is amazing, um, and has such knowledge that she is just a gift, really, is the best way to say it. So
thank
how
you.
can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so people can find me if they want to work with me at thesaffronsage.com. You can book a session that way. You can also find me on Instagram or YouTube or my Facebook page, and they're all under the name The Saffron Sage. I have tons of videos on YouTube on different placements if you want to know what your moon means or what house it's in, or you know, all the different placements in the zodiac. I have a lot of videos people can watch just to kind of dig in and learn a little bit more about their own astrology as well.
And I think that's kind of a good point, is you can help them understand that, because I think anybody who's new, you know, you listen to some people, some astrologers, and they're like, oh, the North Node and da da da, and you're like, I don't know what that means. And it kind of almost turns you off from it. So I think, again, I highly recommend booking with Cassandra anyhow. But I think for someone who's just starting out, who maybe starts out and watches some of those videos and then is like, bah, and feels overwhelmed with it,
Mm-hmm.
have a reading and get it, you know, just have that reading so everything's kind of explained to you, um, and then go from there too. Um, so yes, thank you very much. Hugely informative for me. I'm going to be sending this out. I will be uploading it as well, hopefully to my YouTube if I can. Um, but I just want to say thank you. And I think there's so much benefit in understanding this and understanding ourselves just a little bit better. It can help us on our journey. So, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. This has been so fun.
It is fun, isn't it? All right. I will talk to you guys later.